Okay, so the quadratic formula is our last method to solve quadratic equations. It is a formula utilized to solve for the x-intercepts, which are also called the roots or zeros of a quadratic equation when the equation is in standard form. So we did go over what standard form means in the previous video, but just in case you didn't know, it's when the x squared x and number are all on the same side. The a will always be the number in front of the x squared, the b is always the number in front of the x, the c is always the number that stands alone. This is the quadratic formula. There are a group of students who really like this because it's a formula. It's like me giving you the base and the height of a triangle and asking you to find the area. You plug in what you know, you get your answer. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the steps for this and how to do it, and you will need a calculator to be able to do this, so make sure you have one available. So first example here, find the x-intercepts. If we're going to use the quadratic formula, remember that that is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I used to make students memorize this. I don't anymore. But the one thing you do need to do is identify what a, b, and c are before we start plugging things in. So in this particular case, the a is 1 because there's no number in front of the x squared, therefore there's a 1. The b is 2, and the c is negative 8. So anytime there's a minus sign, it has to go with the number, and that goes for all three of them. All right. The first step is always just to plug in the numbers. So take the formula and substitute each of these where they belong. So we would have x equals, okay, negative b, so it would be negative and then the 2. So the negative is part of the formula, okay? So make sure it's always there. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. I always encourage students to use parentheses when they substitute these numbers. Okay, the a value is 1, the c value is negative 8, and then over 2a. All right, again, notice how I'm using parentheses for every single number that I substitute. All right. Now, when you're simplifying this, you can do this however you want, okay? But my way, I like, okay? The first thing we should do is everything inside the square root. Not the square root itself, just what's inside of it. So in your calculator, you're going to be typing 2 squared minus 4, 1, negative 8. Okay, so if you do that, all right, you should be getting 36 for your answer. So I'm going to rewrite all this. I know that seems like a lot, okay, but I'm going to rewrite this, replacing what's inside the root with the 36. Okay? That's the first step. The next step will be to find out what is the square root. All right, so the square root is 36 is 6. I can do that without a calculator. So I rewrite again, negative 2 plus or minus 6 all over 2. If it's a decimal, then you write the decimal. The third step is to split it up. Because of this plus or minus symbol, that means I have two answers. All right, I'm going to have negative 2 plus 6 over 2, and I'm going to have negative 2 minus 6 over 2. Okay? Next, I only want to do the top. If you type all this in your calculator once, you're probably going to get the wrong answer because you're not going to use parentheses appropriately. Okay, so take it a step at a time. All right, negative 2 plus 6 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. There's one answer. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8, divided by 2 is negative 4. There's your second answer. Okay, so do the top first, divide last. You know, make yourself a little note. Divide last. Okay, so the nice thing about the quadratic formula is if you do plug the numbers in correctly and you take your time and you go through each of these, you're going to get the right answer. Okay, it's just a matter of taking your time and making sure that you know the steps that you're taking are good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to this one here because I want to let you know what happens when we don't have a particular variable. So here the a value is 1. The b value is 0 because there is no x, and the c value is negative 9. So what that looks like in my formula would be negative 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 9 all over 2 times 1. Nothing different though, okay, besides the fact that the b is 0. That doesn't change our work. So we're still going to have 0 plus or minus the square root of whatever this equals. Okay, that one actually turns out to be 36 again. Okay, divided by 2. and then we still continue with the same steps. So in the end, I would get x equals 6 divided by 2, which is 3, comma 0, and I would get negative 6 divided by 0, which is negative 3, comma 0. Okay, now I skipped a couple steps in here. Remember that. I don't want you to do that. 0 plus 6 over 2, 0 minus 6 over 2. That's what's feeding into these. Okay? All right, quadratic formula.